He vanished on a quiet Wednesday morning. No goodbye, no warning, just gone. 7 years passed before anyone saw him again, and when he finally returned, he carried a secret, one that would rewrite everything his family thought they knew about him. His name was Ethan Hale, 35 years old when he disappeared, a man everyone described the same way: responsible, predictable, safe. He worked at a small architecture firm, lived in a modest apartment, and spent most weekends visiting his mother, Margaret, who adored him. Life wasn't perfect, but it was steady, until the day everything changed. That morning began like any other. Ethan left home early, kissed his mother on the forehead, and told her he'd be back in the evening for dinner. But evening came. Dinner got cold, and Ethan never arrived. At first, Margaret thought maybe he was stuck at work. Maybe he forgot his phone again. Maybe traffic was bad. But when midnight hit, fear sank in. She called his friends, his office, the hospitals, the police. Everyone said the same thing. He never showed up today. Weeks turned into months. Search teams combed through forests, rivers, abandoned buildings. Posters were hung everywhere. News outlets ran his photo constantly. No leads, no trace, no clues. It was as if Ethan stepped out of his own life and vanished into thin air. His mother never stopped searching, not even when the police closed the case, not even when her friends told her to accept reality, not even when the world moved on. She didn't. Every night she left the porch light on. Just in case, she'd whisper. 7 years later, on a warm summer evening, Margaret heard a knock on her front door. Soft, uncertain, almost afraid. She wiped her hands on her apron, thinking it was a neighbor. But when she opened the door, her breath froze. There he was, Ethan, older, thinner eyes, darker, holding something heavy, something that lived deep inside him. "Mom," he whispered, and Margaret collapsed into his arms, sobbing harder than she had in years. He held her tightly, trembling. As if he wasn't sure he deserved her hug, when she calmed down, she cupped his face. "Where were you? Ethan, what happened?" He swallowed hard. "I can tell you everything, but you need to sit down." They moved into the living room. The same sofa, the same curtains, the same lamp. Everything looked familiar, except him. He looked like someone who had lived 10 lives in 7 years. Margaret took his hand. "You can tell me anything." Ethan stared at the floor. "Mom, I didn't disappear. I ran." Margaret's heart dropped. "Ran? From what?" He exhaled shakily. "From something I couldn't face, and something I couldn't let hurt you." "It started," he said, 3 days before his disappearance. He received an anonymous package at work, no return address. Inside was a thick envelope and a single sentence on a piece of paper. "Your father's death was not an accident." Ethan froze. His father had died 14 years earlier, officially from a construction accident. The envelope contained photos, documents, and voice recordings, evidence suggesting his father had been murdered. Ethan went to the police, but before he could hand over the evidence, his apartment was broken into. Everything was stolen. Everything except the original envelope, which he had hidden. That same night, he received a call from an unknown number. A distorted voice said, "Stop digging, Ethan, or your mother is next." His blood ran cold. That was the moment he made a choice: to disappear, to protect his only living family member. So he left, walked away from everything, and vanished. "For 7 years, Margaret whispered. "Ethan, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was being watched," he said softly. "And because, if they knew you were looking for me, they'd come for you too." "So where were you?" He took a long breath. "In hiding, moving from town to town, working odd jobs, changing names, trying to survive." "Alone?" He nodded. "Always?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, Ethan." He gently squeezed her hand. "I survived because of one thing: the thought of coming home when it was finally safe." Margaret wiped her cheeks. "Safe? What changed? Why now?" Ethan hesitated, Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out a small metal drive. "This," he said, "it took me 7 years to gather enough proof. 7 years of searching, following leads, tracking the men who killed Dad. I couldn't come back until I had everything, until I could finally finish what he started." Margaret stared at the drive. "What's on it?" Ethan's voice dropped to a whisper. "The secret I came home with." He explained everything. His father had been working on a major construction project, one funded by a wealthy, powerful figure known for cutting corners to save millions. Ethan's father discovered that the building's foundation was dangerously unstable. He refused to stay quiet. He threatened to expose the truth. 2 weeks later, he was dead, covered up as an accident, filed away, buried. Ethan spent 7 years collecting evidence, tracking down witnesses, recording confessions, copying files, and securing documents. He had enough proof to expose a crime that had been hidden for over a decade. Margaret felt her hands shaking. "Ethan, this is dangerous." "I know," he said calmly, "but it's over now. I'm going to the authorities tomorrow morning. And after that, I'm staying here for good." Margaret pulled him into a tight embrace. "My boy, you should never have gone through this alone." "I did it so you wouldn't have to," he whispered. But the story didn't end there, because at 3 a.m. that night, Margaret woke to the sound of Ethan screaming. Not words, not sentences. Just pain, raw and torn from a place too deep to heal quickly. She ran to his room. He sat on the floor, drenched in sweat, shaking uncontrollably. "Ethan! Ethan, honey! Talk to me!" He covered his face with his hands. I can't forget it. Those years, I saw people die. I saw things I can't unsee. I had to run. I had to hide. I became a ghost in my own life." Margaret held him as he cried. The son she had lost, the man he had become, and the scars he carried home. The next morning, Ethan kept his promise. He turned in the evidence. He told the full story, and it worked. Within months, the men responsible were exposed, arrested, and charged. Real justice, had finally come. Ethan's father's name was cleared, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt free. He rebuilt his life slowly. Therapy, small jobs, walks in the park with his mother, warm dinners together, quiet nights without fear. It took time, but eventually he began to smile again. The kind of smile that meant something. 7 years after his disappearance, Ethan didn't come home the same man. He came home stronger, older, broken in places, but wiser in all the ones that mattered, and with a truth that changed everything. Closing line. He disappeared for 7 years to protect the people he loved, and returned with a secret that finally set them free.